President Bahia and President Jordan, I appreciate you making the time to meet with me and to speak about yourselves, your colleges, and your states to complete College America. Put simply, the community college system of New Hampshire is a national leader in putting into action various student success reforms that increase the number of students who graduate. I'm interested to learn in particular about how you, your colleges, and your students have worked through the COVID-19 crisis, dealing with challenges from maintaining healthy learning environments to keeping enrollment steady. So before we get into all of that, please tell me a little bit about yourselves, your background, your colleges, and your state.
Go ahead, Lucille.
Good afternoon. Actually, it's morning, but welcome. It's an opportunity for us to actually speak about the successes we have had. I'm Lucille Jordan, and I'm president of Nashua Community College, which is located in the second largest city in the state. While it's the youngest college in the system, we're just celebrating our 50th anniversary. I have been here for 24 years as the college president, and I have seen significant changes, all in the positive and great growth. When I first arrived, we were at 450 students, 70% male. Today, we're over 2,000, and we're 60% female and 40% male. So I'm really pleased at the progress we have made. Larissa?
Good morning. My name is Larissa Bahia, and I'm the president of Lakes Region Community College. To tell you a little bit about our system, before I tell you about Lakes Region, we are 7 colleges that form part of the community college system of New Hampshire. And truly there's a breadth of colleges in our system. As Lucille mentioned, that is an urban, Nashua Community College is an urban institution in the second largest city in the state. I am in the north central part of New Hampshire in Laconia, and it is a small rural institution, beautiful region with lakes and mountains. But we are a small institution of about 1,200 students, and just very different, serving a very different demographic in different parts of our state. And that's what we think part of what makes New Hampshire interesting.
Great. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. Last week, the U.S. Department of Education released its latest graduation rate data, among other measures. There are many ways to measure student success, and I'll just pull one here. According to this very recently published information, the community college system of New Hampshire leads in the New England region in the 3-year graduation rate for full-time students. And your 2 colleges have high graduation rates within your system. What student success reforms have led to that?
I'll go first. A number of changes that we've occurred. First, we have employed a structured schedule so that students are more focused, so that when they come in, basically through a course called Ethnography of Work, our students begin to then focus in on a major and are in a structured schedule so that they have their core, they complete that core, and they can get done within that 2 to 3 year period of time. Prior to that, students were all over the place. And now that they have that focus, they're able to then to continue on and complete. And not also is much of the tutoring support. We've also no longer do developmental ed. We have co-rec English and math. So students aren't in that spiral where they don't think that they can get out. No, they can realize success. We've had a significant result of persistence because of both the co-rec in math and in English and moving forward so that the students are completing. And more importantly, I think, is that our students, and it is a challenge, I will tell you that, you know, when you have commuter students, community college students, and typically IPEDS doesn't recognize all of the issues facing community college students. They just base it on first-time freshmen. So if this wasn't just based on first-time freshmen, I can only imagine what our success rate would be. But given that, and still we have made those changes, recognizing that that data is significantly important. And Larissa?
Yes, Al, thank you, Lucille. Certainly, our system has taken some of the initiatives that that Complete College America has pushed in the last couple of years. And what was really interesting about how we did it, and Lucille talked a little bit about that, is that each college looked at its demographic, its particular population, and decided what initiatives made sense for its community. And I think that has really been successful for us. And certainly in moving the what we call kind of traditional measures of success, as graduation rate being one of them. For Lakes Region Community College, one of the things we really focused on was ensuring that students had a very clear idea from the very starting point of what purpose was, kind of asking that question, what is it that you're here to do? What is the end goal? And then how do we put into place supports to help students move towards that goal? So that meant looking at orientation programs very carefully. Similarly to CO, we have a structured schedule, and students actually register for the entire year. So they register for the fall and the spring. And that gives them not just a plan, but a vision. So then you're really able to put your life around that, right? Your work life, your personal life. We know that our students come with a number of different challenges and responsibilities. And so giving them that peace of mind that they know what to expect, not just for the next 3 months, but also 6 months, 9 months going forward, that really makes a difference. And the other thing that we really paid attention to at LRCC was that our average credit load for students was significantly low, because many of our students, even though they were full-time, didn't really know that full-time did not mean 12 credits. So we worked really hard to say to students, full-time is not 12 credits if you plan to finish in 2 years. And that was really eye-opening for many of our families. Our families primarily were following that dictate because that's the financial aid requirement. And they really didn't look carefully at that program of study and say, oh, I have to have 15 or 16 credits to actually make progress towards that degree. So really working on that average credit load, both for our part-time and our full-time students, so that it can be manageable for them, was something that was really critical for Lakes Region Community College.
And I would also add that cohorts were very important. And we know that when you're in a cohort, you have greater success. So when we did our structured scheduling as well, we have morning blocks and afternoon blocks. And so again, you can schedule for the whole year, but you might be in that morning block, you're with all of those students in your cohort as well. And then they support one another as they move forward. So we know that cohorts are very, very successful in moving forward too.
Great. The ideas that you've shared and what you've implemented on your campuses is great. I'm curious as to how you've had to shift to address the COVID-19 crisis and how that's impacted your student success initiatives.
How long is this recording, Melanie? No, I'm just inserting some humor, but I think certainly the last 6 months have been challenging for our institutions and our students. And for our system, we've worked really hard to stay focused on what our goals are and how we can best get our students to those goals, understanding that we were going to have to make some changes along the way. And communication was really important amongst our team of leadership to make sure that even though conditions were different in different parts of the state, that we were addressing those local conditions and helping each other and helping our students, right, that come from different areas. You know, one of the biggest challenges for a rural area such as mine was broadband access. We struggle with that even in non-COVID times. Many of our students simply can't afford to have broadband access at home. And so primarily for them, it's the use of that, of any type of internet services done on campus. And so we had to think of creative ways to make sure that we were providing that in times that made sense for our students, even though our campus was closed. So that meant expanding internet access in the parking lot so that students could drive up and do homework in there while in their cars. Once we were open to students, it meant that we were able to have library hours by appointment so that students could come in and finish that work. So just thinking creatively about what students' needs were and how we could meet those needs. And at a small institution, that sometimes is done on a case-by-case basis. And so following up with students, we surveyed students, we called students, we made sure that we were doing outreach so that we could find out what the needs were and then how could we best address those needs.
And I would add, I would agree across the system, the communication was key. Every single student was called weekly. We also were very fortunate, and it was timely. We implemented across the system Better Health so that our students had access for mental health support, because we know in COVID is very stressful for many of our students. Many of our students with learning disabilities needed to have support services as well, and we were able to provide those for those students. I know my colleagues as well. I would do a Zoom weekly with all of my students and provide them that support as well. It was a challenge, but at the same time, I think the communication that we had for our students, the ability to let them know that we were going to do everything to support them to get through. And then it's been the challenge for fall semester. We were hoping that fall would be different. But each, as Larissa has clearly stated, each region of our state is very different. My region happens to be in a red zone. And so for us, that remote learning piece of it is even more challenging than some of my sister rural colleges right now, fortunately, are in the green and have very limited cases. So we've had to react differently in cases as well. But again, I would think that the support that we have put in place has made a difference for those students. We do provide for our students, we do have on-campus experiences for those students. We also had difficulty, we have a high Latino population in our area that we serve. So that language barrier, that piece of it for those students, we had to overcome that as well, which we did. And providing, as Larissa said, all these kids from school had Chromebooks. Well, we can't, Chromebooks, we need more than that for our students. So we had laptops that we gave to our students, so to make sure that they didn't miss any learning opportunities.
I think, Melanie, the thing was really, the key was really about creativity. And I think both on a leadership level at our system and our faculty, I have to say, showed really great creativity at addressing, we hear unprecedented a lot, right? But truly this was a different, it was a game changer. It was, how do you address the fact that, we have culinary students that need to, can't be in a classroom, or nursing students that can't go into clinicals. These were the kinds of questions that we were dealing with in the spring to finish our spring labs. And we had hoped, I think, in the spring semester that in the fall, we wouldn't be facing some of the similar challenges, but we're getting to the place where, although some of us are able to have face-to-face classes, those questions are coming up again. How do we finish the semester in a way that, that makes sense, that meets the requirements for our students, but also gives them the face-to-face time, the hands-on time that they need in those technical programs to be able to meet the requirements for each one of those programs. And that's an ongoing challenge that we're going to have to continue to work with.
I think the silver lining, for lack of better words, with COVID is that we were able to think outside the box to address these things that students have always experienced, of lack of internet service, students' basic needs, and that we've been able to address that and hopefully continue doing that post-COVID. I know that enrollment has been a challenge across the country because of COVID-19. The National Student Clearinghouse shared last week that new student attendance at community colleges has dropped 22%. So how have you grappled with that on your campuses?
Well, interesting, for Nashua, new students was up. So we were up 12% in the number of new students and I think we changed our marketing strategy real quick. We pivoted real quick in that we realized that everybody, we all had dropped direct mailing, and we realized everybody's reading their mail now. We did 3 significant direct mailings to individuals, and we followed up then with those phone calls to all the households in our catchment area. And while it was expensive, it was significant to do that because that's how we were able to reach them. In addition to, we were able to use some funding from the state of New Hampshire to attract students who were impacted by COVID. And so that free tuition for those students helped to also increase, as well as we did have on-campus visits. It was by appointment only because for many of our families in our region and first-time students, they wanted to see the campus. They also wanted to see that it was a safe campus. So when they came onto the campus, they could see that there was only one chair at a table in the dining hall. They could see the social distancing in the classrooms, and then they felt safer about sending or themselves attending the institution. So we really did a lot of pivoting as far as our marketing to really reach to those students to let them know that they would be in a safe environment.
I think we also, in our case, we were down in new students, but we saw increases in other populations. So for example, our dual enrollment, which are our high school students that are taking in different types of programs, college credit courses, we saw a huge spike in the number of high school students who are taking online classes at LRCC for dual credit. And that makes sense. We know that families were looking for some alternatives. In our state, each school district is very independent, and they were going by their own guidelines as to what that particular community, how that community was going to be responding to the COVID-19 crisis. And that didn't happen really till August. So for many families, there was a lot of uncertainty right up until the start of the school year as to what was going to happen. So I think offering classes, additional classes, making those available to students and those families early on helped us in terms of them being able to know that at least their children were registered for a couple of things and that they were going to be able to get college credit. We also really focused on retaining our spring population. One of the things that we had heard in surveys from our spring students was that they wanted to come back, but that they wanted to come back to face-to-face classes, that it was important for them to have some type of direct connection with their faculty members. And so we really worked with that population as we were making our plans for reopening to figure out how could we build a schedule that allowed them to have some face-to-face interaction, but also maintained our safety protocols. So for us, that retention piece of it really made a significant impact on our fall enrollment.
As well as that, I think, and I agree with Larissa, and what we did is to ensure everyone had an on-campus experience. So all of our classes were hybrid, regardless of whether they are just all theory and didn't have a lab. There's still a hybrid. There's a full online option, and we would make accommodations if you wanted to be remote. In addition to our early college enrollment just exploded. And I think that is because many of the parents still wanted to have an on-campus face-to-face experience, which Larissa clearly articulated.
So given the high unemployment rates across the country due to economic fallout and the impact of COVID-19, many of the students you serve, I'm sure, are displaced from work right now. So how has that played out for you, your colleges, and your state?
Well, for us, we're doing a number of boot camps right now. We have a microelectronics boot camp for students, and we continued that training. We were able to do social distancing and allow for that training. It's a 10-week boot camp, and then they get employed right away. We have a coding boot camp as well. So we're putting forward boot camps to get them moving forward, but also allowing them at the same time, if it's non-credit, we've been able to look at that and award credit so that they know that they can continue on to a pathway. So it's all very stackable, but yet we are beginning to see that training. I think right now, we're gonna really see that in another 6 months. I think people now are coming off unemployment or realizing that perhaps that same job is not available to them anymore, especially when we're looking at some of the hospitality areas. And so it's helping guide them to where they will go. And I think we're going to see that pretty soon.
I think Lucille hit on some really important points there that are really specific to New Hampshire in many ways, because New Hampshire had very low unemployment prior to the crisis. And we also, another characteristic of New Hampshire is that there's a focus on very small businesses, and we have a large proportion of small businesses in our state. And so we know that both of those things really do give us a different picture of the economy in New Hampshire. Many of those small businesses, unfortunately, are not going to be able to come back, perhaps not at all. And if they do, they're going to be different once this pandemic happens. And so those individuals that were employed in small businesses will have a different impact than perhaps in some other parts of the country. And so part of what we're trying to do, as Lucio said, is address those specific needs with boot camps, with short-term trainings. We know that we need to get people back to work, and that the associate's degree isn't the only way to do that. And for many, it's not something that they can devote 2 years to do, right? You don't have the time to say, I can devote 2 years of full time of study to be able to start putting food on the table for my family. So we're trying to work with our employers locally and see where are the areas where they see that there's going to be highest needs, so that we can provide that type of support in a short time frame, and then provide people with the opportunity to continue, right? So that the stackable piece is absolutely correct. We want people to continue their education, but we also want them to be at a place where they feel like they can, where you are sufficiently comfortable economically to be able to say, okay, I'm going to devote that time. And then there's some industries like hospitality, where we know we have to support our state. And one of the things that we've done is that the 3 colleges with hospitality programs across the state, Nashua being one of them, Lakes Region being one of them, and White Mountains Community College being another one, came together to put together a hospitality training for frontline employees. It's going to be free for anybody in our state. And the idea is to build confidence in our hospitality partners. And so those individuals that complete the training, a percentage of and meet the percentage requirement, will receive a decal, and which will be called the New Hampshire Promise. And we're really excited about launching that coming up soon, so that customers will be able to walk up to an establishment and see, oh, this establishment has met the New Hampshire Promise requirement. And hopefully that will build some confidence and bring back some of those great participants in any of the hospitality industries offerings, whether it be a restaurant or lodging establishments. We know that that industry in particular is hurting around the country, but certainly those small operators are feeling that much more seriously than others.
That's great. So 2020 has been one of the years where we've addressed political unrest, and we're addressing issues related to police violence and racial representation, and grappling with inequities in all parts of society, including higher education. How has this movement shaped your college activities, and how are you addressing it on your campus?
I'm not sure I can say that it has truly, our college was along the way already. We are part of what's called One Greater Nashua. Nashua has been really engaged and involved in it as a greater region, because it's changed significantly, and which is wonderful. And the diversity has changed, especially over the past 12 years. So we've been moving along in that way. I think it has forced us to speed it up more, to not, take our time in doing some of these things. So I think that it has changed in that regard, for allowing us to have more frank discussions. And also our faculty taking a look at, more importantly, how they are delivering, what they are saying, what tools that they are using. They've been doing it all along, but now I think they really feel it's far more in focus in front of them, than it being, okay, this is part of what I have to embed, and I'm looking at doing it now. I need to do this now.
I concur with Lucille. I think, in a rural community where, racial and ethnic diversity is not really a high commentary or high topic of conversation amongst many of our local residents. I think part of our role is to open the conversation. It is to bring forward some of those difficult questions that perhaps in other areas you would be hesitant to bring them up. I think we see our role in our community as a place where those discussions are started, where there's a safe place to have those discussions, so that we can move the conversation forward. I think in our country, we need to have those conversations. We need to have them openly and candidly with each other, so that we can move beyond some of the differences that we have, so that we can get to the bigger issues, right, that are really causing differences of inequity, whether it be based on gender, or whether it be on race, or whether it be on age. There's lots of things that that cause us to have differences in our society. And until we start having first those honest conversations and feel that there's a place to have them, we're really not going to get to the crux of the issue. So that's kind of how we've addressed it. And I will say that I think our faculty has taken a lead role in that, in thinking about how they are having those conversations in their classrooms, in small group settings, not just as an entire institution, so that at every level, there's a space to have those types of discussions.
So what do you believe higher education will look like in 5 years? What are the big changes that are happening, and how will you prepare for them?
I think we're going to see a significant change in how we deliver. I think we're experiencing great success with hybrid. I think specifically for community colleges. I'm not necessarily going to speak about the four-year institutions, but our students have challenge with balancing work, family, and the cost of that. And so when we could see that we can deliver and provide more of the technology, more of the quality in a hybrid situation, I think that is going to help our students not only complete in a more timely manner, it will also help institutions in how they effectively use their resources. So I see that as a significant change moving forward. I see us looking at our programming differently too as well, because things are going to change. More people are going to be working remotely. How do we provide them the support and the discipline to work well remotely and provide that balance in their lives as well? So you'll see some difference in the courses that we deliver as well. Healthcare industry, that piece of it too, and how we deliver that. I also think that for community colleges, specifically our system will do more of sharing of programs, more effectively using those resources, because it's going to take a while for states to recover from the COVID. We're not sure what's going to happen with the federal funding. So public institutions are going to be dramatically impacted in budgets. And so we will look across our system, which we've already done, but we'll do more and more of how we share our resources, share our programs without starting new all the time, but doing that. And I'll move it over to Larissa.
I think in the short term, we are going to see in the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to see more adults coming to our institutions. For example, my institution has been primarily a traditional age student institution. And I think as the economy continues to move in some level of recuperation and stabilizes, what's going to happen is that a lot of adults are going to realize that their skills don't necessarily match what the needs of the economy are, where their jobs are going to be. And so I think we're going to have to be really proactive about listening to our employers and really matching our programming with what are the needs for openings in those regions. If we're really going to address the issues of unemployment and hopefully continue the move towards prosperity in our local communities. In our state, there are regions, mine included, where we see a significant decline in population. And so it will be key for those communities to be able to survive and prosper, for us to have employers that will continue to support those communities, will continue to bring in the staffing that they need in order to be able to be productive in those industries. And so I think that's going to be a significant change at our institutions. I think more long term, community colleges in general are going to have to think about what their role is, what truly is their role in our communities. And the affordability issue, you know, is something that we need to address. We think about that a lot and we talk a lot about it, but the reality is that in some cases we are pricing ourselves out even as the least expensive option, right? And so we really are going to have to struggle with, as Lucille mentioned, how do we allocate our resources knowing that it's unlikely that we're going to get more resources in the short run so that we can continue to provide the service that that our communities need, but do so in a way that that supports our students and that meets our goals. And that's certainly the issue of resources, and affordability is going to be one that is going to be with us.
And I would add the other thing will be in delivery and changing for our faculty. This will be, some already are there, but some are not. One of the things that we're currently doing for adult students, that you can go full time and get done in 2 years and still work full time. And it's by these 8-week courses that we continue, and it's 5 semesters across the board. And doing that in a hybrid manner so that, you know, they're not every night on the campus, but they're able to manage that. I think you're going to see that delivery change too as well, so that, because adults don't want to wait 5 years to complete their degree and or a certificate. And so we have to change. We have to meet the adults where they are. They want higher education. We just need to meet them.
And so you've already shared tons of great advice and things that you've implemented on your campus, but what is one piece of advice that you would give to new college presidents seeking to help close equity gaps, particularly in college completion and student graduation during these trying times?
I'll let Larissa go first as the newest president.
Thank you, Lucille. I think Lucille said something that's important here, is that, you know, we have to meet students where they are. And I think in academia in general, we tend to think that we know, we have all the answers and that we have the appropriate structures. And so students come to us to learn, and we impart knowledge. And some of that is true. I don't want to demean all of the work that, you know, that people have done to get to the places and the positions that they have. But I really do think that our students every day teach us a lot about what it is that they need. And if we listen and we're able to really think about how to best meet their needs, I think we can get away from some of the obstacles that we put in our own way. And so listening and being flexible and just meeting students where they are, for me, is a guiding post, certainly as a young president in my career.
I will say that I think the most important element is trust. You have to develop trust, not only among your student body, but among your faculty. And to do that would be for them to take risks and to support them in those risks, and even when it fails. And you learn from that. And as you develop that trust, you will then see that equity gap begin to change significantly, because they're going to trust that they have the support to move forward. And as Larissa said earlier, those are going to be difficult conversations, very difficult changes that occur. Without trust, you cannot implement anything. And so I would say that that's the first and foremost thing that a new college president needs to develop.
President Jordan and President Bahia, I want to thank you on behalf of Complete College America in joining us today to share your expertise, knowledge, and experience that you've had addressing COVID-19 and the social unrest on your campuses. I look forward to our continued partnership, and thank you.
Thank you for all your work. Thank you.